Now we start from the Middle East. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared today that Israel remains determined to secure the return of all hostages held by Hamas in Gaza, vowing that the fight is not over yet. Speaking at the state ceremony in Jerusalem, marking the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack that ignited the ongoing war, Netanyahu has emphasized Israel's unwavering resolve to win a victory that will impact the region for years to come. The remarks came a day after Hamas claimed it had handed over all the captives it could access. Netanyahu has reiterated Israel's commitment to achieving the goals it set out for the Gaza war, insisting that the country would prevail. He has also warned Israel's enemies, stating that anyone who harms Israel will face severe consequences. The ceremony held at the Mount Herzl Military Cemetery has honored fallen soldiers who have died over the course of the 2-year conflict with Hamas. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Sasha Machta. She's a political commentator, joins us live from Jerusalem. Thank you very much, Sasha, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Sasha, can you tell us how fragile is this ceasefire, and do you think that this could hold?
Hi, so first I'd like to thank you for having me on the program and express my deep appreciation to the Indian people. And I think that for now the most important part of this deal has occurred, which is the release of the living hostages. It was the most urgent and necessary move, and we're full of joy that we've seen the images of the 20 hostages, living hostages, reunite with their families. But as we see, we're dealing with a brutal jihadist terrorist organization, and everything is fragile. We still have 19 bodies of dead hostages that need to be returned as according to phase 1 of the deal. So we can't move on to phase 2 of the deal until all of the bodies are returned. We're dealing with a group that has no good faith in negotiations, and we depend on pressure being put on Hamas. So I think that the fragility of the deal depends on what pressure we're going to see being put on Hamas by the Arab world and by the United States. So for now, I'm optimistic that this pressure will keep going because it's what led to this deal. And we hope that in the next few days we'll see the remaining bodies of the hostages come home and the proper burials that the families so deeply deserve, because we can't move on, the families can't move on from this horrible, horrific day in Israeli history without all of the hostages home. We're happy that the living hostages are home, but we still need the remaining hostages.
And Sasha, we saw that in the ceremony we just saw earlier in these clips that Prime Minister Netanyahu was in the place where all the fallen soldiers of IDF are rested. Can you tell us what is IDF or Israeli government doing to ensure the psychological safety, the trauma that these IDF soldiers have come back home with after this war?
So there's no lie that Israeli soldiers are facing a lot of PTSD. The whole country is in grief. We had one of the most horrific days in not even Israeli history, but in Jewish history since the Holocaust. It was the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust on October 7th, and we are a country that's mourning. But we also understand that we need to fight to live safely here, and we need to fight for our existence. And the soldiers, they have saved this country on October 7th. It's their bravery that came out and saved the kibbutzim, and it's been their hard work and their countless days and dedication to the country that has brought the hostages home as well. But of course, the Israeli government and the IDF needs to take certain steps to ensure that the PTSD that Israeli soldiers may face and the psychological trauma of this 2 years of war will be handled. And there's a lot of investments that will need to be made in this. There's a lot of steps that will need to be taken. But the most important thing is that all of the people in Israel openly embrace all of the soldiers and treat them as heroes. And we know that without them, we would not be here today. So there's a lot to be done, but the healing begins with the return of all the hostages. And we feel that a unique joy that we haven't felt for 2 years. We feel that we can finally move on from October 7th. Because even though the world might have forgotten this day and might have forgotten why we're fighting, we never forgot. The soldiers never forgot, and we always remember. But not only we remember, we try and remove this threat and we try to live safely, because that's all we want. And now we can heal. There's a time for war and there's a time for peace, as Trump said in his speech. And we hope that now is the time for peace. We hope that now is the time for healing. And we hope that we can move on from this horrible day, horrible day in our history.
Thank you, Sasha, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now, the Hamas-run Health Ministry and Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis has confirmed that Israel has handed over 30 Palestinian bodies to Gaza today. This brings the total number of Palestinian remains returned to 120 people since the ceasefire agreement. Under the deal brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump, Israel was to release 15 Palestinian bodies for every deceased Israeli returned. On Wednesday, 15 October, Hamas has returned 2 more bodies to Israel and stated that it had handed over all remains of captives accessible to them. Now, for this discussion, we go back to Sasha Machta. He's a political commentator, joins us live from Jerusalem. Thank you, Sasha, for staying with us. Sasha, when they say accessible, Hamas has said as a reason for only handling 2 hostage bodies, they said accessible. Can you tell us what could be the reasons behind? Do you think that they have lost the bodies of these hostages during they were in the hide in Gaza during this war?
First of all, there's a slight chance that some of the bodies may be lost and that there will be a need to find them. But Israeli intelligence has confirmed that the number is much higher of hostages' bodies that are in Gaza that Hamas has said. So at the end of the day, we know that there's more hostages. We know also that Hamas wouldn't just lose these bodies, because at the end of the day, what was keeping Hamas alive these 2 years was holding hostages. The hostages are Hamas's key asset, and of course they're not going to lose them so easily. So we know that Hamas is trying to test the limits of this deal. Hamas is trying to see whether each small infraction will be met with consequence, and that's why we need to up the pressure on Hamas. The international community needs to up the pressure on Hamas. Qatar and Turkey need to up the pressure on Hamas, because this deal and the future and success of this deal depends on pressure being put on Hamas. This pressure being put on Hamas is what brought to this deal, and it's what will see the continuation of this deal. So I don't think that Hamas is telling the truth. I think that there are more bodies of hostages that they must get back immediately, and we must all call for Hamas to give up the bodies.
And Sasha, now that we have seen past week, a lot of countries across the world, including a lot of countries from Europe, have announced aid for reconstruction of Gaza. What do you think? What is the role of Europe moving forward in this Gaza and Israel situation?
I think that Europe does have a role to play in the reconstruction of Gaza, but there can be no reconstruction of Gaza without the full disarmament of Hamas and leaving power. This is also part of phase 2 of the deal. And at the end of the day, Trump laid out a plan that will also see the reconstruction of Gaza without Hamas. So there's a role to play. Europe could have a constructive part of it. We also have to take into account the dangerous actions that Europe has been taking prior to this deal. At the end of the day, Europe has helped in prolonging the war. We believe that Europe's unilateral declarations of Palestinian states have not contributed to ending the war, have not contributed to peace in the Middle East. And Europe's going to have to change their attitude to the conflict, because Europe has consistently, I'm speaking about most European countries like France and Spain, have been consistently rewarding Hamas. And we're lucky that Donald Trump was able to convince the Arab world to get on board, because the direction we were heading was Israel's international isolation, led by Europe, led by Canada, led by Australia. And of course, that would have just prolonged the war, because Hamas was getting rewarded for the continuation of this war. And thankfully, we're all grateful for Mr. Donald Trump that was able to put an end to that and stop rewarding Hamas and put all the pressure where it belongs, which is on Hamas through its patrons, through Qatar and Turkey. And Europe's going to have to change their attitude to this region if they want to have a constructive role. But of course, this problem is not only an Israeli problem, it's a regional problem. So we also hope that regional partners will come in and create a better future for the people of Gaza, because we want to live in peace with them. We want to see them thrive. We want to see them have a future where they can really achieve economic prosperity and a better future for their children. And the key of that starts with removing Hamas, de-radicalization and demilitarization. And that's part of the deal, and we need to pressure and call for Hamas to lay down their arms.
With that, I would like to thank Sasha Machta for joining us today and sharing that insight as a political commentator. Thank you. Now we move on and we stay in the region. Palestinians in Khan Yunis are facing the reality of mass displacement.